Welcome back. Glad to have you aboard. We hope you are having a great pre-Christmas, getting ready for the, what are we, 3 weeks away now from that day, Christmas? And we're going to keep saying Christmas. We are going to talk about Santa Claus. We're going to wish you a Merry Christmas. We're going to ask you to be blessed. We're going to do all kinds of politically incorrect stuff on this program because we are Christians and we do observe Christmas. So if you don't like it, you may not want to watch this program on Wednesday nights. But if you're like I am and you believe that this is the season, that Christmas is what this season is all about, and I don't mean the commercialized thing. I mean, we're all subject to that. We're all kind of stuck with that thing. We're all trying to find the right gift for Auntie M and all that stuff. But we don't want to lose sight of why we have this season. It's all about the compassion of our Lord and Savior Jesus, the living, risen Christ, who died on the cross that we may not have to go to hell for our sins. I know that's putting it in a nutshell and as a pretty broad statement, but that's what it's all about for this time of year. And keeping in that vein, every week at this time I tell you about Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center. Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center is a Christ-centered nonprofit ministry offering life-affirming alternatives to abortion and compassionate care to those who face pregnancy and abortion-related issues. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. This is about life. This is the antithesis of everything Planned Parenthood, or as I call it, the Chamber of Horrors, the House of Horrors. Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center. At this time of year when we're looking forward to remembering the birth of the Christ child and all that that means for all of us, won't you please show some compassion and hope? Contact them at 478-HOPE, 208-478-HOPE, and see what you can do to help show some compassion and hope to a young mother who may be experiencing an unexpected, or maybe even at this point unwanted birth, but is not ready to do the ultimate, and that is kill the baby. And they can go to Compassion and Hope and they can get counseling that may help them so that they don't have to do that. But Compassion and Hope is very small. They need your help. So please call them, see what you can do to help them at this time of the year. Send them a nice check. Compassion and Hope, 478-HOPE. God will bless you and you will feel very good about it. You know, a couple of weeks ago I made a statement that I'm sure has some people, that probably put some people's teeth on edge. Maybe I was not as careful in describing what I was, explaining what I was trying to say. I made a statement that I don't think City Hall should be funding charitable organizations. And I used as an example Aid for Friends. And I didn't mean to beat up on Aid for Friends. It was the first one that came to mind. They do a good job. They do good work. And they do receive charitable monies from other people. People support them. But my statement was that the government shouldn't be in the charity business. That should be our own compassion and our charitable giving that supports organizations like Aid for Friends. But I wanted to share something with you because I think I still, as I said before, I believe in organizations like this. I believe they should be doing the work, not the government. I was turning on the porch lights or something, noticed something fluttering. It was taped to the front door, and it was just this little piece of paper here. And I'll just read it to you. It says, "We invite you to participate in our neighborhood charity gift giving this Christmas season. Rather than giving a simple gift to your neighbors, please consider donating to Aid for Friends." Or Friends, Aid or Friends. It goes on and gives some other stuff in there. I don't know why they felt they had to do that. An organization who offers hope to individuals and families experiencing or facing homelessness. As much as we all appreciate cookies, goodies, and kind gifts, let's think about others who are less fortunate. It gave a drop-off place. This one happens to be on Satterfield Drive. And then and the drop-off is good from December 2nd to December 20th. So there's a 3-week period that people can, and my wife and I will be doing this. It says items needed: liquid hand soap, laundry soap, feminine hygiene products, body wash, 4 through 6 size diapers, pull-ups for children, blankets, and men's winter gloves and hats. And then it has more items and it gives the online site, www.aidforfriendspocatello.com. And then the family that's sponsoring this. I thought that was great. I like that because this means that you and I, or whoever decides to respond to this, can do it because we are touched in our heart to do something decent for somebody else. but our tax money isn't going for it. The tax money should be for running the city, not giving to aid to any charitable organization. But at any rate, Aid for Friends, keep them in your mind, keep them in your Christmas mind, and maybe you can help them, even if it's just like making a donation. Contact them, look them up, aidsforfriendspocatello.com, and see what you can do to help them. Helping homeless families, that's good for this time of year. So lest you think that I was the Grinch who wanted to do away with all charitable stuff, nothing could be fie on that. Nothing could be further from the truth. But I think this is the way to do it, and I applaud these families. These are the Huffs, and I applaud the Huffs for their charitable heart at this time of year. We're going to be talking a lot about Islam tonight. In fact, that'll be the most of the show, if not all of it, and for very good reason. I don't think anybody that's watching this show could possibly have not seen what happened in San Bernardino, California, a community about 40 miles east of Los Angeles. Redlands, lest you be confused, Redlands is a separate community, but it's rather like Pocatello and Chubbuck. They abut each other, so there's a lot of interchange. So people may say San Bernardino just because it's better known than Redlands. But who hasn't seen something about this horrific murder by these religion of peace advocates, this man and woman, husband and wife murder team, who murdered 14 of their fellow workers and attempted murder on another, I think it's 19. I believe 2 of them are still in ICU, and a police officer was injured apparently by a ricochet. But who can forget all of that and all of the baloney we heard coming out of? Now, we didn't hear any baloney coming from the chief of police in San Bernardino. He did a very good job, and we didn't hear any baloney coming out of the mouth of the assistant FBI director for that area. He was cautious and he was thoughtful, but we didn't get any baloney sessions out of him. And eventually it has been evolving now, and we're finding more and more about these people who were just quiet people minding their own business. And isn't it sad that the left have been able to program, in this case, a lady from the community there, a neighbor, who had suspicions that there was something going on. Something didn't seem right. She was hearing noises at night or something, but she was afraid to call the authorities and make a report for fear that somebody would accuse her of profiling. Now, that's pathetic. First of all, let's dispel this whole profiling baloney. This is an artful invention by the left to keep police from doing their jobs. You've seen this hateful group, this hate-mongering group called Black Lives Matter. You saw them interrupt one of their heroines, Hillary, and you saw them interrupt the socialist Bernie, what's-his-face, the former mayor of Maryland, in Maryland. He's running for office. I guess he's former governor also. The Black Lives Matter. When they had the temerity to say all lives matter, these Black Lives Matter people went ballistic. The left has been working so long, so hard, and so assiduously to undermine our thinking, to undermine our courage, our sense of well-being, that people have gotten cowed to the point where they're afraid to stand up for themselves. They're afraid to stand up for their neighbors. And so here's a woman who saw something that it just didn't click. But because these were Middle Eastern-looking people, and I don't think she ever described how she viewed them, but I'm assuming that I don't think we ever got her name, and it's just as well. But in that neighborhood, it was probably an Hispanic surname. But she had seen something, but she was afraid to come forth for fear somebody would say she was profiling. That's the same thing that the left did started with LAPD, when they started going after police officers for profiling black suspects, profiling Hispanic suspects. Didn't matter that there were things, and let's face it, folks, you and I both know that we all profile. We all are guilty of reading, judging the book by the cover. And the cover tells us whether or not we want to open the book and see anything further. But if you see me, there are a number of things you may attribute to it, but certainly you're going to see an older white guy with gray hair and a goatee. You see this, and it puts me in a certain category. There's no way that your mind cannot do that. I don't care what the left says about colorblind or any of that baloney that they come up with. There are some basics that are that are just basic. I'm an old a white guy with a gray beard and gray hair. Now, how could you not describe me that way if you saw me? If I were a black man sitting here, how could you, I remember in Los Angeles, it got so stupid for a while under Mayor Bradley, a black mayor, who had been a lieutenant of the police department, and it was such a virulent racist that he could not promote beyond a lieutenant. So when he became mayor, he took out the axe and started chopping off people's heads in the police department. It got so bad that police officers were scared to death to give a description of a person who was a fleeing bad guy if it in any way, shape, or form alluded to their skin color or race. Now, how stupid can you be? If you're in an all-black neighborhood and a white guy robs a liquor store, and when the guy leaves, it's a white guy that robbed the liquor store. Now, the black people in the neighborhood are not going to be worried about profiling. They're going to say, Whitey did it, or the honky did it, or the Ofe did it. They're going to come up with something, and nobody will say anything. Oh, obviously, he's the bad guy. But if a black guy were to do the same thing in a white neighborhood, 9 will get you 10. People will be reluctant or afraid to say, well, it was a black man of 30 years old and about 5'10" and all that. People are afraid to do that. And it got so bad that you would hear police officers going on the air and they would say, a male fled west in dark clothing. They were afraid to even mention that he might have been black or Hispanic. They would mention if he was white. But they were scared to death because we had already been cowed to be afraid of noticing things that were basic. You know, like the little kid that told the king, you're naked, you're not wearing clothes. And so here's this woman who had an opportunity. Would she have been able to save lives? Maybe. You know, if the police department had decided there was something they wanted to look at. And now we're finding out that there may have been people looking at him a long time ago. And isn't it interesting, under the, what is it, the K-1 program that his wife came in under, where he married her in, I think it was in Pakistan, where he and his family are from. And then she came under a K-1 visa, which said she was his betrothed, and she had 6 months to marry him, and then she could stay. Apparently, this is becoming a big ploy now, and I guess they're using this a lot, something similar to it. It wouldn't be K-1 in Europe, I guess, to bring people in. And this was somebody, this woman was supposedly carefully vetted. They could find nothing on her. She was carefully vetted. She wasn't Syrian, but she was a murderess. And the husband, the man who was born in this country, his parents are from Pakistan, but he was born in this country, apparently. And yet they were worried about him becoming radicalized. He was already radicalized. In fact, it was interesting. There was an interview with the father, and the father apparently, is not accustomed to being on camera. And so he was not considering quite what he was saying. But he was trying to point out that his precious son, the murderer, had a fixation that he hated Jews. He hated Israel. And he was really ardent in his hate. And his father, and this is where this goes to something I told you about several months ago. His father didn't say, son, get over it, or son, that's not the way to be. He said, well, don't worry about it. Israel won't exist in 2 years. Now think about what the man said. This is the father of the murderer. He didn't say, that's not a good way to think. What would Allah say? Well, what Allah would say, kill him. Instead, he said, don't worry about Israel. Stop fixating on it. They'll be gone in 2 years. Now, remember when I told you several months ago, and I'm sure that some of you gasped, sucked in a little breath and said, Lillig, you've gone off the deep end. I gave you a plan. I'm going to reiterate it. It is my contention that the family of this Saeed, what's his name, I don't care if he's American born, he abrogated his American rights when he decided to murder Americans in the name of his God, his Allah. You take the whole family, every single one of them that you can find in this country, and you send them back to Pakistan. And this is, it's rather like when you were in the military. Those of you who were in the military, especially if you were, like I am, going way back, you remember that when one guy in the company or in the platoon messed up, the whole platoon suffered. And the one guy didn't do that stupid thing again. The whole platoon suffered. He learned, they learned, and it didn't happen again. Same idea. You take the family of this guy and you ship them all back whence they came. Same with the Boston bombers. Send them back to Chechnya or wherever they came from. This major, the so-called psychiatrist in the Army that murdered, 14, I think it was more than that, at Fort Hood. all the while yelling Allahu Akbar, and we were supposed to not think that this was a murdering Muslim. Well, we're gonna go into this. I told you we're gonna talk about this evening. The future of our nation, of our very way of thinking, is in the balance. And if we don't stop worrying about being politically correct and start thinking with our guts, or whatever you want to say, this Western United States, Western civilization as we know it is going to cease to exist, because the Muslims, and I don't say the radical jihadists, I say the Muslims are determined to do away with us. Well, I've got a couple of things I want to share with you, and the first one is a former Muslim, a lady who's I don't know if she's become a Christian. I'm going to kind of guess maybe she did. She may be a secularist. It is obvious when you see this little film clip that she is no longer Muslim. Are we ready to go with that, Ryan? Please pay attention to this.
I have been putting off making a video for a long time, and I have been trying to control my temper in my new effort to be a better person. However, seeing as to how people won't stop being dimwits, I'm going to have to spell this out for you. Islam is not a race. It's a religion. Therefore, when I say Muslims have to believe in Muhammad, their prophet, and follow him as their ultimate role model, it doesn't mean I'm a racist. Because Islam is not a race. If you believe in Muhammad and Allah, you're a Muslim. If you follow Muhammad as your ultimate role model, you're a Muslim. What did Muhammad do? He was a rapist, a pedophile, a mass murderer, not to mention a warmonger, liar, cheater, thief, adulterer. He took in hundreds of sex slaves, spilled plenty of blood all around the world, all in his name, all on his hands, all because of his teachings. And if you fall for this jihad is self-betterment crap, see, I said I wasn't going to get angry. You deserve anything that comes to you. Because the information is out there. Okay? Jihad is not self-betterment. Jihad is from the noun juhd, meaning to put out effort. Okay? Now, Islam took this Arabic word and turned it into jihad, and that means for the sake of Allah. Jihad is exerting effort for the sake of Allah. Now, what does Allah want? Allah wants everybody to become Muslims. Okay, jihad is mentioned several times in the Quran. Several times in the Quran it's mentioned, kill them and fight them. Cut off their heads. Now, some people will say, well, just because it's jihad, it doesn't mean it's violent jihad. Okay, on the terms in Islam where you don't have an explanation in the Quran, you're supposed to refer to Sirah and Sunnah. That's everything that Muhammad said and did. For Muhammad, what he did when he was in Mecca, a pagan place, when he was outnumbered, when he first started on his revelations, and he was first trying to convert people, he did it peacefully, secretly. He did it, pretended that he wasn't doing anything, and then was doing everything on the down low. Then he started to call for people to convert on the outside, publicly. Then he got kicked out of Mecca because him and his buddies were troublemakers and the pagans didn't want them there. And what happened? They went to Medina. Okay? Medina already had a following for Muhammad. That was the last time Muhammad ever called for anybody to convert in a peaceful manner. Never again in Muhammad's life did that happen. After that, it was war, it was murder, it was sex slaves, it was craziness. You want an example? Bani Khaybar was a village next to Al-Medina. Muhammad had a dream where one of the women from Bani Khaybar, they were all Jews, had poisoned his water. So the best solution that he could find, this is the Muslim role model, was to go in there and kill everybody and take the women and make them sex slaves. Jawari or a Jariya. That's what they're doing to the Yazidi and Christian women in Syria, in Iraq, by ISIS or ISIL. This is what's happening. They're not bad Muslims. They're perfect Muslims. I have never seen more devout Muslims in my life. And I grew up as one. In the Middle East. By a family that was well known to be very lenient in their religion. Growing up, none of my aunts had wore hijab. None of them prayed 5 times a day. My dad, if you look at him, he wears shorts, he's got necklaces, he's very westernized. But let me tell you, Sharia law is real, jihad is real, and it's not self-betterment. Muslims believe that it's more merciful to kill a non-believer because it is better for them to die than it is for them to live a life outside of Allah and outside of Islam. So no, for the person that said, saying that all Muslims are terrorists is like saying all Italians are in the mafia, you're a dimwit. Italians are a race. They're a country. They come from a country. They're not a religion. They're not a belief system. So get over yourselves and start educating yourselves. And to everybody else who's talking about Islam getting taught in schools, I have to say this. I have no problem with Islam getting taught in schools. Make sure you actually teach about Islam. I don't want to hear anybody sugarcoating it. I don't want to hear anybody taking out parts that are inconvenient. If you're going to talk about Christianity, you can't teach about Christianity without teaching about Christ. You can't teach about Judaism without teaching about Moses. You can't teach about Buddhism without teaching about Buddha. Don't teach about Islam without talking about Muhammad, his 11 wives, his most favorite, the 9-year-old he used to take off the playground to go and have fun between her thighs. That isn't Islam. You think that's inappropriate? You want me to read you some of the things in the Sirah and the Sunnah? It is nothing. This is nothing compared to what I was taught when I was 6 years old. You want to teach about Islam? Teach about Muhammad's sex slaves. Teach about slavery that was spread around the world by Islam. My black American people, y'all are mad about it? Those are the people that spread slavery. Their merchants are the ones that spread slavery all around the world. They're the ones that still have over 20 million black slaves in Muslim countries and nobody's talking about it. Feminists get so worried about not getting equal pay, which is a myth, that is ridiculous because they're not worried about women getting stoned and killed and butchered in Muslim countries. They're not worried about Yazidi little girls that are getting taken as sex slaves. You hypocrites. The LGBT community is so concerned about baking a cake. Yet people who are just accused of being gay in Muslim countries are getting thrown off of buildings. You hypocrites. I have had it. If you want to learn, don't come up and challenge me about and give me one incident where a Muslim did one good thing and ignore 1,400 years of violence. You want to know where the Quran talks about jihad? Read the Quran. You want to know about Sunnah and you want to know about Sirah? Read them. They're there. If you have any questions, ask me. I am more than happy to answer. And if you're a Muslim, do not insult my intelligence and try to use taqiyya on me. You're way out of your league.
I think she's a little upset. But I thought it was interesting. I thought this would be worthwhile because this is a lady who was raised in the Islamic traditions. She was raised in that madness, and somehow, somewhere, she saw the light. She is obviously Americanized, Westernized, and she obviously values our traditions and the way we live here enough to speak out. By what she did, by her having the courage to speak out this forcefully, with her face fully showing, not being hidden behind a nakib or something like that, that woman took a tremendous risk, and she blew the whistle on Islam. For instance, she spoke about the 9-year-old wife of Muhammad. Now, remember, I've told you this before. I've shared this with you. We as Christians attempt to emulate Christ, at least to be Christ-like in our thinking. We look to him as something that we should try to emulate. How do you have a God named Allah, whose messenger is Muhammad, and you emulate a man who is a murderer, a thief, an adulterer, a pedophile, every kind of evil thing you could think of? How do you emulate this guy? Do you want to be the one who marries a 6-year-old, but because of your benevolence, you wait until she's 9 to consummate it? This was by the way, that was Aisha. This was the one that was called his favorite. 9 years old. Is there something sick there? Is this something we should be trying to emulate? Is that something to look up to? And yet this is the role model who is speaking for Allah, not God. This is not the God that you and I know. This is Allah. And we've spoken before about who or what Allah actually is. By the way, this lady, we don't know her name. All I know is what you know, just what I saw on the CD there. But this lady was obviously quite passionate. A couple times I thought she was going to break down and come to tears, especially when she was talking about the abuse of little girls and the enslavement. And this is one of the things that the Obamianists have, Sheikh Obama gave us this flowery lecture some months ago, years ago. You remember when he talked about all the wonders, the beauties of Islam and all the things that Muslims had contributed to this nation. He very conveniently glossed over the slavery issue, which the slaves were being brought from Africa, and they were being sold out of Africa by, you guessed it, Muslims. Now, this was long before the slave trade started over here. This has been going on for at least 14 centuries, 1,400 years. And as she pointed out, there's still 20 million slaves in Muslim nations to this day. You don't hear him talking about that. Just as last night with his baloney, the speech from the Oval Office, which, interesting, he used a pedestal instead of sitting at the desk. He's still, no matter what he is, he's always going to be a community organizer and a union boss or wannabe boss, and so he had to be behind the pedestal. By the way, this young lady mentioned a couple of things there, and I know it went by so quickly you probably missed it, but let me just share what it was. She was talking about the Sirah. Now here's a very short read on the Sirah that you can use to educate yourself, and you really should. I've told you this many times. I'm a firm believer you cannot defeat evil unless you know what it is. And unlike Sheikh Obama, who refuses to identify it and name it because it's part of his very soul, I will tell you that evil is Islam and Muhammad is the devil. But that aside, the Sirah, that's the life of Muhammad, the Sirah, S-I-R-A. These little booklets are available from the Center for the Study of Political Islam. And the booklets are written by a fellow named Bill Warner. The Center for the Study of Political Islam. You should read it. The Life of Muhammad, which is the Sirah. Now this is what it says. Islam is defined by the words of Allah in the Quran and the words and actions of Muhammad called the Sunnah. The Sunnah is found in 2 collections of texts. The Sirah, Muhammad's life, and the Hadith. The Hadith is that large green book down there. The Quran says 91 times that his words and actions are considered to be the divine pattern for humanity. The pedophile. A hadith or tradition is a brief story about what Muhammad did or said. A collection of hadiths is called a hadith. There are many collections of hadiths, but the most authoritative are those by Bukhari and Abu Muslim and the ones used in this book. This is the one by Bukhari, the green book there. Actually, that's the Travelers. I'm sorry, the hadith. I didn't bring the hadith. I have that one at home. So there is a trilogy. The trilogy is the Quran, the Sirah, and the Hadith. The trilogy is the foundation and totality of Islam. Now, we always talk about Islam, but Islam is made up of these different things. The Quran, which would be the satanic equivalent to our Holy Bible, the Quran makes up only 14% of Islam. And that's why I've told you Islam is a blanket because it covers a number of things. Anyway, The Life of Muhammad, the Sirah, by Bill Warner, Center for the Study of Political Islam. Now, she also mentioned the Sunnah, and I just told you what the Sunnah is. This is an Hadith. Remember, this story is about Muhammad. This is the Sunnah of Muhammad, the story or the things about him, by Bill Warner, Center for the Study of Political Islam. You should get this. It's easy. You can see it's a narrow little book, easy reading. You can read this, keep it on the bedside stand. It won't put you to sleep. You'll find it interesting. And then finally, in this little trilogy, as I put it, Sharia law, which is like saying law, Sharia for non-Muslims. That's for you and me. Also by Bill Warner, Center for the Study of Political Islam. And basically, what is Sharia? Sharia law is Islamic law. Sharia is the basis for every demand that Muslims make on our society. Sharia is what the Muslims want to supplant, not just supplement, but to supplant our Constitution. All right. Now, I've got another film here, and we're going to go back. We're going to go back and review something that we spoke about. We've actually done it a couple times now, but this film is so well done. I want to show it. It's 4 minutes long. It's a CD. It's only 4 minutes long, but it's very well done. We're going to go into that, but before we do that, in just a moment, let me just remind you about a couple of things that we're talking about Sheikh Obama, the head imam of the nation. This is the man, you may remember, that about 7 years ago went before the king of Saudi Arabia and bowed before the king. Never has one of our presidents bowed to the head of any other nation. We don't do that. That's not our American way. It doesn't mean we disrespect them. We shake hands, but we do not bow. And it wasn't just a little nod of the head. He did a full bend at the waist bow before the king, the Saudi king. Now, what does that mean? Remember, I told you this before. I remind you. The Saudi king is the protector of Islam. It is his responsibility as the Saudi king to protect Islam. All of Saudi Arabia is considered the footstool, if you will, of Islam. He is also the defender of Mecca and Medina. He is the defender of all things of Islam. So when our president, our alleged president, the community organizer, bowed before the king, he was already sending the signals as to where he was in the world. Remember that the same alleged president bowing before the king is the one who said in his book, the thing about my father, whatever it is, that if it came down to something between the Islam and the rest of the United States, he would always side with Islam. Remember that? He's also the same alleged president who went before the United Nations, and he said the future does not belong to those who disrespect the prophet. Now, what are we dealing with here? At the very least, I don't care what people say. I'm not politically correct. I am determined that he is a Muslim. If not outward, certainly in his heart, because he has done nothing to show me otherwise. He has been defending Islam against us, the United States of America, since he set foot in the White House. It has never stopped, and he has not yet uttered the fact that the words that Muslims are the problem. Muslims are attacking us. Muslims are the scourge of the earth. He won't say anything, and I'm being very broad. He won't say even a sand speck of anything like that. This is the guy who, remember, he spent his formative years going to Muslim schools in Indonesia. That didn't leave him, especially since he was groomed and kept on being groomed by ardent communists after he went into college. I suspect that the 7 years, he has never stopped smoking those funny cigarettes he was smoking in college. Remember that one where he's got the gangster hat and he's all squinched up because he's getting smoke in his eyes, he's smoking a doobie? I think he's still doing it. And I think it's finally starting to tell. Well, anyway, so in my opinion, Sheikh Obama, is aiding and abetting the enemy. There was a very interesting piece on Glenn Beck recently, and I think it's in his book. I've ordered his book. I want to read this to see if that's where it is. But if I have it correctly, if I understood it correctly, he outlines how basically Obama has been footing the bill for ISIS from day one. ISIS is nothing new. It's been around for a while. It has only become strong recently. All right, well, before we run out of time, I want to share a couple of other things. Okay, we're good on the next one, Ryan. Please watch this. Remember, this is a repeat. Please watch this.
It's been over 7 years since a church group from another state brought a couple hundred refugees to the rural county where I live. I wanted to know, how could they do this? What was the governmental process that allowed the resettlement of refugees to a county ill-prepared to assimilate them? Employment opportunities were scarce. The health department was not familiar with illnesses and mental health problems of people who came from parts of the third world. The school system was not prepared to teach large numbers of students who didn't speak English, and subsidized housing was scarce. I wanted to know who gave permission for what amounted to a dropping off of needy people in our county seat. So I began my research and posted everything I learned to a blog, Refugee Resettlement Watch, so that others might know what I learned about a federal program that is 35 years old this year. In summary, I discovered that the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees was choosing most of our refugees. It's under the influence of a powerful Muslim supremacist group called the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Not surprisingly, a large number of U.S.-bound refugees are coming from countries with large numbers of people who hate us, including Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and soon from Syria, just to name a few. The U.S. State Department then distributes the refugees to 9 major federal contractors, 6 of which are so-called religious charities, but all are largely funded from the U.S. Treasury. They're not passing the plate on Sundays for the $1 billion price tag for the resettlement. And that figure does not include the extensive welfare benefits refugees receive. The refugees are then sent to over 190 cities and towns in the U.S. where the 9 major contractors support 350 subcontractors. The refugees receive help from the subcontractor for up to 6 months, and the subcontractor then submits paperwork to admit the relatives of the first group. As the years have passed, I've become increasingly alarmed by the percentage of problematic Muslim refugees admitted and distributed around the U.S. through this program. By the way, the Refugee Resettlement Program is not the only one used for legally admitting Muslims, but it is one of the most important. Many are forming cities within cities. Perhaps you know one where you live, where mosques are being built to consolidate, train, and promote a growing American Muslim population and its Islamic supremacist doctrine called Sharia. This process of Muslim colonization is called the Hijra. Muhammad told his followers to migrate and spread Islam in order to dominate all the lands of the world. He said they were obliged to do so, and that's exactly what they are doing now with the help and support of the UN, the U.S. State Department, and the Christian and Jewish groups assigned to seed them throughout the country. Your tax dollars pay for it all. I've written this little book, Refugee Resettlement and the Hijra to America, so that you will know what is happening to us and what we can do about it. We only need to look to a troubled Europe to see the path ahead for America if we can't stop this migration, and stop it soon. There's no reason on earth that we should have brought over 100,000 Somalis and another 100,000 Iraqi Muslims to America. Soon we will be resettling Syrian Muslims in large numbers. The UN at the moment has over 10,000 in a pipeline destined for our towns. The FBI told Congress recently that they cannot be properly screened. If you don't help counter the Hijra, we are, in my opinion, doomed. Over time, this migration will be more devastating to your children and grandchildren and to our country than any terrorist attack could ever be. Learn more at Refugee Resettlement Watch and SecureFreedom.org.
Now, you've seen that before, and I deliberately played it again because, first of all, I wanted to reinforce it in your mind. And secondly, I have a follow-up on that in just a few moments that I think will put the fine point on this. It'll be the crossing of the T and the dotting of the I to what you just saw here. Let me just tell you a little more about Hijra. Hijra, which means migration, For the sake of Allah means moving from the land of shirk. Now, shirk is where they're mingling with we who are of descendant of pigs and monkeys, to the land of Islam. As the Muslims moved from Mecca before its people became Muslim to Medina, because it had become the city of Islam after its people had pledged their allegiance, their bay'ah, to the Prophet and asked him to make hijrah to them. So hijrah means migrating to join other Muslims. Hijrah may also take the form of moving from one land of shirk, mixing, to another land of shirk where evil is less prevalent and there is less danger to the Muslims, as when some of the Muslims migrated from Mecca at the command of the Prophet to Abyssinia, which we would call Ethiopia. Hijrah is also an approved way of spreading Islam. Move to a land of lesser shirk and increase. Shirk, now here's shirk. Shirk is atheism, polytheism, idolatry, Judaism, Christianity, or any other religion but Islam. Medieval Muslim philosophers identified belief in the Trinity with the hearsay of shirk, in Arabic meaning associationism, in limiting the infinity of God by associating his divinity with physical existence. In a theological context, one commits shirk by associating some lesser being with Allah. We, since we are not part of Islam, are lesser beings because Islam is the superior religion. That's why they have to kill us. This sin is committed if one imagines that there is a partner with Allah whom it is suitable to worship. And it goes on. So you now know what hijrah and shirk are. In just a moment, I'm going to do this little follow-up I told you about. And it's very brief, but it puts a fine point on this. Well, let's do that now. Go ahead, Ryan. Let's show that. Pay close attention.
Are we a stupid nation or what? Try to guess what this is. It's the Arabic instructions of how to apply for food stamps in Michigan. This is easily verifiable by calling the Michigan Department of Human Services. Have we gone batty? It's official. The camel's nose is in the governmental bureaucratic tent in Michigan, feeding on our hard-earned money we pay in taxes. But wait, it gets worse. Muslim men are allowed 4 wives. So when they immigrate to America, they simply list wife number 2, 3 and 4 as extended family to qualify for welfare and a myriad of other taxpayer-funded government programs. So if you live in Michigan and you're Muslim, there is no need to assimilate into American culture to get a job. You simply call the Public Assistance Office to get a recording directing you to press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish or 3 for Arabic. Don't believe me? Call for this number for yourself and press 3 for Arabic. 1-888-678-8914, Michigan EBT card hotline. Where is the public outcry? Where's CNN? Where's NBC? Where were the town hall meetings asking us if this is what we wanted? Don't we as taxpayers and US citizens have a right to have at least some input in these multi-billion-dollar drains on our tax-funded governmental bodies? If you don't like seeing US tax dollars spent to support multiple Muslim wives, call your congressman and see if this Michigan welfare system for large families is coming to your state and let him or her know how you feel about that. Please forward a copy of this email to every hard-working red-blooded American citizen you know, before Obama's hope and change transforms our nation into something we no longer recognize.
Well, did that get your attention? It certainly got mine, especially since we're going to have some 300 Syrians dumped on the Twin Falls in the Twin Falls area, thanks to College of Southern Idaho, CSI. There are good Americans out there that are working hard to stop this, but they're working against a stacked deck because Sheikh Obama is determined to have his kinsmen planted in this nation. Every single one of these groups is a potential bomb, just like what we saw happen in San Bernardino, just like what we saw happen in Paris, like what we saw happen at Fort Hood, and what we saw in Boston, time and again, every single time. And isn't it interesting that Lynch, Loretta Lynch, I think it is, the new top lawyer. She is not the top cop. The Attorney General of the United States is not the top cop. It's the top lawyer. It's an insult to me and everybody else who has worn a badge, any badge, to have her or anybody else there referred to as the top cop. It's the top lawyer. But that aside, let me just share this. This is interesting fact for further research. And by the way, this program will air again Sunday at noon. And I hope you will contact somebody you know and ask them to watch this so that they can see what we're talking about, the hijra, about the tax situation. Because if we get those 300 people, well, they're going to be dumped eventually in the Treasure Valley with the magic, whatever it is. I get that confused. Twin Falls, because of the College of Southern Idaho. What happens when these people don't get jobs? They go on welfare. What happens when these guys bring in 4 wives? They declare one, and the other 3 are extended family, but they each get welfare. That means that these Muslims, these potential, this 5th column, potential IED waiting to go off, is being paid for by you and me. But here, let me just share this with you. The Immigration and Nationality Act, passed June 27, 1952, revised the laws relating to immigration, naturalization, and nationality for the United States. That act, which became Public Law 414, established both the law and the intent of Congress regarding the immigration of aliens to the U.S. and remains in effect today. Among the many issues it covers, one in particular, found in Chapter 2, Section 212, is the prohibition of entry to the U.S. if the alien belongs to an organization seeking to overthrow the government of the United States by, quote, force, violence, or other unconstitutional means. This, by its very definition, rules out Islamic immigration to the United States, but this law is being ignored by the White House. Islamic immigration, hijra, to the U.S. would be prohibited under this law because the Quran, Sharia, and the Hadith all require complete submission to Islam and directs the establishment of the Dur al-Islam, the House of Allah, in any land occupied by Muslims, which by definition is antithetical to the U.S. government, the Constitution, and to the Republic. All Muslims who attest that the Quran is their life's guiding principle subscribe to the submission to Islam and its form of government, Dur al-Islam. Now, the political correct crowd would say that Islamists cannot be prohibited from entering the U.S. because Islam is a religion. Whether it is a religion is immaterial because the law states that aliens who are affiliated with any organization that advocates the overthrow of our government are prohibited. And so Sheikh Obama, of course, will use executive fiat, as he's been doing for years now, and he'll get them in there. But basically, it's against the law, the very laws that are meant to protect you and me. Interesting thing that's happening. We have, I think, one more to show. Is that right? Just one more. Let's go ahead and show that. Let's go ahead and show that, and then we'll wrap it up. Watch.
If all we do is bomb them, ISIS will grow stronger.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here we come, it's a mistake and blunder. Bombs alone can't get it done. Obama's jive is starting to make us wonder, is he dumb or traitor for sure? While ISIS gains more strength, Hussein keeps bombing them with the U.S. Air Force.
And as far as a nuclear deal with Iran goes,
on the Hill, if they fail, GOP should go to jail if Obama keeps rolling along. Past this deal, there's no doubt, there's corruption now throughout if Obama keeps rolling along. For it's high, high heat till the nuke drops on D.C., then they'll know Bibi wasn't wrong. 'Cause as treaties go, well, this one would really blow, but Obama keeps rolling along.
And our carrier group that was in the Persian Gulf is now in its home port.
Anchored in bays, my boys, anchored in bays. Farewell to foreign shores, at home is where we'll stay. Obama's weak and more, his brain is foam. Until Trump wins for sure, Barack will keep the Navy here at home.
And as far as his respect for our U.S. Marines,
from them all in Chattanooga to the scores in Ramadi, we are hamstrung in our battles by Obama in D.C. While we fight for right and freedom, he makes heroes of punk teens. He is proud of the entitled, not United States Marines.
All right, I had to do that. I'm not pushing Trump for president. That was the only way I could get that on there so you could see that. A little humor, a little dark humor, but nonetheless true. By the way, did you see today where Iran has launched a ballistic missile capable of carrying a nuclear warhead and capable of 1,200 miles range? I think that means it's capable of hitting Israel. And that is that's, by the way, that's in opposition. That's completely unlawful under UN mandate. They're not supposed to do that. And yet, Sheikh Obama, you can guarantee he will still give them their $150 billion so they can continue to build these 1,200-mile range ballistic missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Israel is going to have to do something soon. I don't know if we can last the 12 months or 15 months needed to get rid of this bum. You notice they use the word Hussein. Hussein is, of course, Sheikh Obama's middle name. I don't know if this can go on for that period of time. Once he's out of there, God forbid, heaven help us, and the four horsemen of the apocalypse will appear, I guess, if we get another Democrat, whether it's Bernie Sanders, the socialist, Hillary Clinton, the thief. I mean, there are all kinds of names you can put on her. Name your own, whatever it is. If it's disgusting enough, it fits her. Help us. If any of them get elected, we're in deep, deep, deep kimchi. So, folks, even if you're a left-wing, mad dog, yellow dog Democrat, whatever you are, you better vote to the right this time because the end is near. A couple things that we're going to touch on briefly. You know, the Quran, I was watching this morning when Dr. oh gosh, his name just, he's got a funny, it's an Arabic name, a nice looking fellow. He was a lieutenant commander, a doctor in the United States Navy, served honorably, but he is a devout Muslim, and he is one of the so-called moderate Muslims. Now, I don't want to, Judy Zasser, I think that's his name, Judy Zasser, something like that. He is trying to reform Islam. But you've got a problem with this. The Quran does not allow you to reform Islam, because if you change one T, one dot, one period, whatever, then you are apostate, because this wonderful so-called prophet, this Muhammad, was very clever in that when Satan was directing him at what to write here, he put in there that if anybody changes anything here, they are apostate and they have to die. So you can't reform Islam, because if you do a so-called reform, you couldn't do a reformation like we did with the Christian faith. If you do a reform of Islam, it's no longer Islam. The prophet, so-called himself, said if you do this, you're an apostate and you have to die. Surah 9:5 is a very interesting surah, and here's what it says. This is under the heading. This is in the Quran under the heading of repentance. So when the sacred months have passed away, then slay the idolaters whenever you find them, and take them captives, and besiege them, and lie in wait for them in every ambush. Then if they repent and keep up prayer and pay the poor tax, leave their way free to them. Surely Allah is forgiving and merciful. So if you're Muslim, you are required to kill me if I don't submit. 29. This is 9:29. Fight those who do not believe in Allah, nor in the latter day, nor do they prohibit what Allah and His apostle have prohibited, nor follow the religion of truth, out of those who have been given the book, until they pay the tax in acknowledgement of superiority, and that they are in a state of subjection. And the Jews say, and it goes on, may Allah destroy all of the Christians and Jews. This is out of their Quran. Then it says over here in Surah 9:123, fight those of the unbelievers who are near to you and let them find in you hardness and kill them. So the religion of peace is not very forgiving. Quickly, just for your edification, I have a stack of stuff that I wanted to go through. You just can't cover it in an hour. I need 3 hours like Rush Limbaugh has or something, I guess, to cover this stuff. I want to educate you quickly in the difference between a hijab, a niqab, and the burqa. This is an important thing. It's an interesting thing, but it's important. The hijab, now you're not going to be able to see this very well, but the hijab is, it says, the word hijab describes the act of covering up, generally, but is often used to describe the headscarves worn by Muslim women. These scarves come in many styles and colors. The niqab is a veil for the face that leaves the area around the eyes clear. However, it may be worn with a separate eye veil. And the burqa is where they're covered from head to foot. You can't even see the eyes. And I suspect that those clever Muslims came up with these ideas because they didn't want to see their wives' mustaches. Well, we're at the end of another hour, and it goes so quickly, and I have so much I want to share with you. You must learn about Islam. It is evil, 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 and we are in great jeopardy. Watch this again Sunday. Pick up some notes. If you ever get the chance, go to YouTube Ralph Lillig or Ralph Lillig YouTube, and you can see all of my films for the last 2 years. God bless you and yours. We will see you next Monday, God willing. Have a good, safe week. Bye-bye.